Well, I'm back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where you are in the world. This is Gloria White, and I'm coming to you from Utah, USA. Today, I have an update on the Sahara dust storm that is working its way. Now, it is in the Gulf of Mexico. It is continuing to come across the Atlantic Ocean. And where it has crossed over Puerto Rico, people there are suffering with swollen eyes, and their throats are irritated, their lungs are irritated, and there's been a number of health problems that have occurred because of the dust. Now, the particulate matter is measured in little parts per million, and it is down to like 5 parts per million, 10 parts per million. And now the air control people are wanting to change the dangerous levels, push it up to 25 parts per million, which meaning that it wouldn't be hazardous to your health until it reached 25 parts per million, which would be a total lie. And the thing is that the particles are so small. They're smaller than a blood cell, a red blood cell. They're small like a bacteria. So they can go in through your nose and lungs and get into your bloodstream, and then they can travel these little parts of these particles, and we don't know exactly what all they're made up of. I mean, it's dust, but what else could it contain? We don't know, and no one's done an analysis for that. They probably don't want to scare us to death. But when it gets into your bloodstream, it can cross what's called the blood-brain barrier. In other words, there is a barrier around your brain itself that prevents certain things from crossing over and infecting your brain. But these are so tiny, they can pass through that membrane and get into the brain and all parts of your body. So anyway, I have 2 videos that I can put down in my description box. One is from Homegrown USA, and he was the one that came across information that talked about cytokines, that are these little tiny things that get into your bloodstream and so forth and so on. And then there is also an update from the Real BP Earthwatch, and he cites his website, which is bpearthwatch.com, for more information. But both of these gentlemen are talking about how this storm can affect our health. And Homegrown has said that the particulate matter is dangerous at different levels. So depending on the color of the cloud indicates how many particulates are in that air. And there is a storm system coming from the west into the Gulf. It's pushing toward the Gulf across Mexico, and it is the dust storm is kind of like running into it and meeting a resistance. So it's starting to form this really thick, like almost crescent moon shape of dust that's getting ready to move on shore into Texas tomorrow, and possibly even as far east as the western part of Louisiana. Now, I have friends that have asthma and heart disease and other types of lung problems such as COPD and emphysema. And so these people are usually elderly, but not necessarily so. There are lots of children with asthma. And So it's indicating by these charts for the air particulates, the concentrations, that not just the elderly and those with underlying health conditions, but also children are at risk of becoming affected by these particles. And it can cause death. It can cause arrhythmia, which is your heart's not beating in a normal pattern, like da dum da dum. It may be beating da 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 da, or dum da 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 da. So irregular heartbeats, fast heartbeats, and this is things that usually occur when your body's not getting enough oxygen. So our lungs will be greatly affected by this dust. Now, and another thing that homegrown shows is that when the Mount St. Helens went off and the megatons of like atomic bombs that would have that much power it would have taken for the explosion that occurred in Mount St. Helens, and how the dust from that was spread from the West Coast all the way across the entire United States. And I lived in Louisiana at that time, and I even saw the sun darkened. And so the dust spread at least that far. Now, the Sahara dust storm, another thing that Homegrown talks about is what type of power or megatons of atomic bomb would it have taken to put the amount of dust and dirt that's in the air coming from the Sahara, which is in the northwest part of Africa. How much power would it have taken to put that much dust into the air? And he did a little research on what the wind speeds were there. And according to the wind speeds, there wasn't enough wind power to have blown that much dust into the air. So we're not exactly sure why this is occurring in the magnitude that it is occurring. But everyone who is going to be in the path of this dust needs to take extreme precautions. They need to cover their eyes and wear particulate mask. Now, a particulate mask is something that blocks small particles, such as an N95 mask, an N99 mask, a respirator. Those are considered respirators, but then there are also other types of respirators that have the two filters that are here on the outside. There are also gas masks that can be worn and cover the eyes. But if you're wearing an N95 mask, you will also want to wear goggles that fit securely against your face to keep these dust particles out of your eyes, because it's causing swollen eyes in Puerto Rico. And they're having to use steroid drops to try to clear up their eyes, but their throats are irritated everywhere there's dust, and that the dust that's gotten into the lungs in the people in Puerto Rico, you can't get it out. So not a good thing. It can be deadly for certain groups of people, and even healthy people are going to have some type of effects from this dust. And so I'm going to link their videos down below, but what I've just given you is sort of cliff notes, the shortcut, the brief of it, the bulk of the matter. And so if you don't have time to go and look at their videos. But people, if you consider that the virus is so tiny that you'd have to have a microscope to see it, these particles are that small. So we want to protect ourselves, just like we were protecting ourselves in sincerity, not just with a little cloth mask because it's not going to stop that tiny little parts per million of this dust from getting into your lungs. And I would like to encourage more people to wear a mask for the virus. And we were seeing numbers jumping up all across the United States. Now, given cloth masks, they only stop you, if you're sick, from spreading something. And that's just to stop your breath moisture or droplets from leaving you and going into the air. People who are wearing a mask are not even 70% protected from the virus. Meaning, even if you have a cloth mask, it's only giving you about 30% protection from the virus. So all those people that are out there walking around without a mask are endangering your health. And the only way for you to protect yourself is to find N95 or N99 or like a serious respirator or a gas mask. And a lot of people are wearing their mask down under their nose, which is not stopping anything that comes from their nose. And it's definitely not giving them even the 30% protection for what they're breathing in through their nose. The other thing is continue to wash your hands. But, and when you've been out somewhere, go inside, throw your clothes, leave your shoes outside the door, throw your clothes in the washing machine and wash them. Go to the shower, in the bathroom. First, wash your hands really good. Then wash your face. Then get in the shower. Now, when you get out of the shower, I recommend gargling with like a Listerine mouthwash. It's not advisable to breathe the fumes from rubbing alcohol. It gets into your bloodstream, and that's bad. So I gargle with the Listerine, and I have it in my mouth, and I breathe in carefully so that the air is passing over the top of the Listerine that I have in my mouth, and then I blow that air back through my nose. And then I brush my teeth and don new clothes, clean clothes. Then I take my shoes at the door and I spray them with Lysol and I leave them out there 30 seconds to a minute, and then I'll bring them inside. But these are all precautions that people that are serious about protecting themselves from the virus and from those that may have the virus or aren't wearing a mask, just to be as safe as I can to try to protect myself from getting the virus. Now, these same precautions should be taken for this dust, simply because if you come inside from outside and you've had your mask and your goggles on, well, these particles are so small they'll be in your hair and all over your clothes. So you come in and you plop down on the sofa. Well, you know, even if you've just been out in your yard and the dust is in the air, you come inside, you plop down on your sofa, that dust is so small and it will get into the air and be in the house. So you take your mask off and your goggles off, but you're still being exposed to some extent to the dust that's on your clothes. So I would do the same thing with my clothes if I were exposed to that dust as I would as if I had been to the grocery store and back. And the whole, wash, clean stuff, everything. So I'm linking those videos, and I want to tell everybody, I love you. Lift each other up. Give each other spiritual food and feed each other soul, because the most important thing to preserve is your soul. So if you don't know God and you don't know where He is, you better start looking for Him. And if you do know Him, tuck yourself in tight up underneath His wing. And I love you.